Welcome to Barnyard Language, honest talk about running farms and raising families. We are Caite and Arlene, an Iowa sheep farmer and an Ontario dairy farmer, with 6 kids, 2 husbands, and a whole lot of chaos between us.
While this is a podcast for farm families, sometimes our content isn't for the whole family. So kick off your boots, reheat your coffee, and join us for some Barnyard Language.
Are you a farmer or butcher ready to master direct-to-consumer marketing and meat success?
The team at ChopLocal is standing by ready to help. Sell your meat on the ChopLocal marketplace, check out all the free meat marketing educational resources at ChopLocal University, hire the team to help you out, or tune into their new podcast called Meat Success.
And remember, there's more than one recipe for meat success. Let us help you fine-tune yours today at ChopLocalUniversity.com.
Today, we are excited to be talking to Christina Struckmeyer, who is joining us from Northern California. So, Christina, we start each of our interviews with the same question, and this is your intro to our listeners. So we always end up asking people, what are you growing? So for a lot of our farmers, that's crops and livestock, but it's also kids and businesses and whatever else you want to talk about. So, Christina, what are you growing?
So right now we're in Northern California and it is freezing outside. So we're not growing much of anything at the moment, but normally my family is growing rice and walnut crops here in Northern California. And I also am growing a family of 2 kids and a husband and family dynamics, and also growing a podcast. I do a podcast as well, the Momversation Club, and we are in our 2nd year and I'm really loving it.
We love podcasting too, and it's always fun to talk to another podcaster because it just feels easy. I mean, all of our guests are fantastic, but all the gear stuff is easy to figure out. We can probably go on forever because that means that we're all talkers. So we usually kind of sometimes dance around the question of size and scale of farms because that is tricky. And I don't know a lot about either rice or walnuts, but like, do we talk in numbers of trees or acres, or let's kind of what is the scale of a walnut farm?
It's so funny that you said that because I didn't know that about farming. I'm coming into farming as an outsider. And so when I first met my husband, that was my first question, was like, how big are we talking? Do you have a small little setup, or are you a millionaire? Like, what's happening?
Christina, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I feel like most male farmers, at least, it feels like you're asking them to discuss a, shall we say, much more personal set of endowments when you ask how big their farm is. I know a lot of men who, would be more comfortable talking about that than about their farm size.
Yeah, it's this sense of also humble. They're very, very humble about what they have. So my husband told me to say a few hundred acres of land is what we farm, but we've had this farm we're the 6th generation, my husband is, and we primarily grow medium green rice. And we also, it's a very young walnut orchard. So it's just enough to like have fun driving through with a side-by-side car with the kids, but not so much that it becomes like an overwhelming situation when you're harvesting, because you have to shake them trees when you're getting the walnuts off.
So Northern California, or California in general, doesn't usually make me think about rice. Like, usually I'm thinking like dry, it's hard to grow, like there's probably some irrigation, but like rice needs a lot of water, right? So what's the situation there?
Oh man. Well, the thing about rice is, you do need a lot of water. So we do run into some issues here in California because we have the drought often. We battle that. But there's a lot of rice farmers here in Cali. My husband is part of a young farmers group and also the Farmers Rice Commission, and a lot of stuff is based here. What's interesting is that a lot of the rice, and this is something I learned as I jumped into this world, doesn't stay here. We ship it out. A lot of the rice we grow ends up being the rice that people use for sushi, which is what I found out. We have a lot of land. We have enough water most years. And when we don't, we make do. But it's constantly a thing that we're always aware of and kind of keeping our eye on, because it is the one thing that we absolutely need to grow the rice.
Right. And are walnuts also a water hungry crop, or are they a little bit more Not as demanding. Yeah.
They're not as demanding because you're not having to flood. So the way that the crops are grown with rice is that you have to get the ground ready. There's like a whole process. My husband is basically not around during the months of March, April, May, and June. He is on the land, planting season, getting it done, and then harvest time as well in September through October. But in the middle of that, there's also like getting the ground ready. You have to chisel and level and fertilize and do all the things. Then we flood it. And then there's this really good process of like, what is it called? A crop duster, where they get the airplane and they drop the seeds in the water, which is really fun for the kids to watch. But a lot of it is just watching it grow and tending to it, making sure the levels are right, making sure there's not a lot of weeds in one section versus like the walnut trees, which just kind of grow. You water them and they grow, and then you water them and they grow. You don't have to worry about whether something's draining wrong or if the levels are off, versus rice is a very tedious crop where you have to kind of really watch it.
Right. So one of our usual questions is, what's your background in agriculture? And so I'm guessing from what you're saying that you don't have one.
No, no, not at all. So my background is I grew up in the Bay Area of California, and that's pretty much lots of cities. You don't see too many crops. I think we took a field trip once to a tomato farm where we learned how they make ketchup. That's the extent of my knowledge of farms at that point. And we grew up in the Bay Area. I came to Northern California as a like later teen. And I did college here and I lived here. I was a reporter, then moved into advertising and PR, kind of did that world for a while. I became a single mom after my divorce that I had with my first husband. And I met my farm husband through Bumble online. And it's funny because we didn't mean to meet each other. I had this very specific thing with the online apps. It might be a little bit out of, people might not know about online apps that are listeners, but basically you have a lot of options for your radius of the person where they live and what type of people and how tall can they be and what kinds of political ideas and all this stuff. And I thought I was being very specific, and I put a specific radius in so that I didn't date anyone that would make me relocate. My husband drove through my town on the way to a boys' trip with his phone open. And he got me. He caught me like a fish.
All of a sudden, he was in your radius.
He was in my radius and he was hard to resist. He's a very charming and funny and sincere and very charismatic man. And I felt head over heels with him. We met in March and we were married by that January. Very quick. And then we had a baby right after that. Found out I was pregnant January 2nd, got married January 1st. And so I was all of a sudden in a family farm. And I was not expecting that. So me and my then 5-year-old moved ourselves to Northern California to a beautiful 1950s farmhouse that was his grandmother's in the middle of nowhere. No DoorDash, no grocery delivery. Starbucks is 30 minutes away. It was a lot of adjustment. I felt like Goldie Hawn in the movie Overboard. Very fish out of water. But I've acclimated, I think, over these last 3 years to a good happy medium. I'm still learning, but I'm also a little bit more with it.
I grew up on a hobby farm, so I had a little more of an idea what I was getting into. And when you said your house was old, I thought you meant older than 1950. But okay. I feel like it's like, folks on the East Coast hear us say our houses are old when they're from like the early 1900s and they're like, that's cute. My house is from 1753 or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay. What were the surprising things, good or bad, when you moved out to 30 miles from Starbucks? I feel like that's like a neighborhood at this point, is like more than 20 miles from Starbucks.
I was shocked. I was like, what do you mean? I survive on coffee. And so we got a really good coffee maker, like as a good adjustment for me. I was like, I need to have something that's going to give me a latte. But there was a lot of adjustments. I think the biggest one was my friend group. I didn't know a lot of people, and my husband grew up in this town, so everyone knows everyone. It's a very small town, which I've grown to love now that I'm a part of this community and my kids are. It's nice going to the post office and being like, oh, hey, Cliff, and like having the same postman. You don't have to really tell him your number. He just grabs the package for you. Like, it's really nice. But in the beginning, my husband's name is Alexander. And I was like, oh, you're Alex's wife. You're one of the Struckmeyers. It was very much like my identity was tied to this other person, and I wasn't used to that. So that was like a big adjustment for me. I was very much an independent woman, very make a name for myself, and I hadn't grown up in an environment where that was existing. My upbringing in Bay Area, California was that you're one of many and like, very forgettable versus here where you say a last name and everybody connects you to that one person they met one time. So that was a big one.
Yeah, I got a shirt that said Jimmy's wife on it from my sister-in-law as an engagement gift. And we've been married 12 years this year. Somebody referred to me as Jim's wife last week. It was just like, yep. Tell people I said I changed my name first and last when I got married, because now it's just Jimmy's wife Palmer, you know.
Exactly. And that's how people know you too. Like you'll have to say, "Oh, my name's Christina Struckmeyer." My family is like, you'll have to like introduce people with that background. And my mother-in-law, who is a big part of the farm, she is very well known in our community because she is someone who used to be the principal of a high school. She was very involved with a lot of the community, like things for young children, just a real pillar of the community. And so walking into this was a lot of like stepping into big shoes. So that was a big adjustment. And then obviously the adjustment of like, oh, we have, a pump system where if you do too many loads of laundry, it will overwhelm the pump and then we have to go turn it off and it'll flood. Oh, don't do this. Oh, we do lose power every few months and it doesn't come on for a couple of days because we're in the middle of nowhere. A bird ran into the wires. Like it's just, and I'm not used to that either. Like it was very much a culture shock.
I work for a Bay Area tech company, and the first time I had to tell my boss that we had lost internet because it was windy, and then because it was rainy, and I was like, it blows the internet out of the lines. And he's like, what? That's not a thing. And I was like, I don't know, dude. It gets windy, the internet goes out. I don't know what to tell you. It's the truth, though.
Truly. And I'm sure it affects podcast stuff too, because for us and our podcast, I'm like, oh, we're going to have to reschedule because there's a storm coming. we can't rely on the internet that's currently existing because it may not be there, which is a bummer because my kids are like, where's my shows? Like they want to watch their TV shows on the internet. And I'm like, we're going to have to pull out the DVDs. Let me blow them off. Like,
Yeah, they're used to on-demand programming where we're like still telling them the tales of 3 channels growing up. Although as a city kid, you probably had cable growing up where, yeah, I was a country kid. So.
yeah. And again, like back to the farm being kind of a family affair, that's been like still like the biggest adjustment I've had of just navigating the dynamics of that. Because having a family farm means everything's kind of intertwined and interconnected and woven together. And his family is very close. And I come from a family of we love each other, but we're a little bit like islands. We touch base here and there, but we exist on our own. And that is not the case with family farms. Everything is very much like you depend on each other. And same thing with the community. We all kind of depend on each other.
You mentioned too that you live in the house that was your husband's grandmother's, and I'm in the same situation. I'm in a home that was the family home, and I'm going to guess that you maybe have some of the issues in Caite as well. I know that she's in a family home that, you go to make a change and it's like, oh, am I going to offend somebody by swapping out this wallpaper or, like changing something like, does someone's aunt or cousin have an emotional attachment to this thing that's now in my house, but it actually still kind of belongs to the family?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about my husband is he didn't mean to, but he picked like the best person to marry when it comes to that. Because I love anything an old lady might have loved. I am very into thrifting and embroidery and crocheted stuff and quilts. And so I walked in and I was like, oh, like this is the perfect house. Look at this cute rooster. Yes. I'm like, this rooster wallpaper. And then his grandmother was so kind as to leave extras of every wallpaper there ever was. So I'm like, oh, we're never changing this. This is wonderful. I love it. But I will say it's interesting when someone comes into my home and they know the layout more than me, especially in the beginning. Like they would just go, oh, I'd be like, oh, the bathroom is. She's like, I know where the bathroom is. Like, I've been here longer than you've been here, ma'am. And it also is interesting to find things here and there because my husband, when I moved in, he lived a bachelor life and this house was beautiful. I saw the bones, but there was a lot to be desired. He had a lot of like, my husband's like one of those pack rats who like leaves paperwork like really, really high and makes doom piles. And so I walked in and there was all these plastic like fold up tables full of like paperwork, and he's very sentimental. He doesn't like to throw anything away. So I'm like trying to clean up and he's like, "Oh, don't throw that receipt out because my grandfather once bought this with that receipt and he touched it once, so we're going to keep it in a shoebox." And that was hard. So, because I am, again, like I grew up in the Bay Area, we moved apartments all the time. We never really kept much. And so I am someone who throws things away. While I value antiques, I'm also not above throwing away things that I'm not fond of anymore, or giving it away, I should say.
So, Christina is someone who has found the dairy sales receipts for the farm dating back to like 1932. Seriously, for every can of milk they took in to the creamery for like 90 years, how many tractor parts did you find in your kitchen? Or how many cans of chain lube or special spray paint? Because I know it's there somewhere.
It's a lot. Yeah. No, there's always something charging or on my counter in the kitchen. I have tried to isolate it to two counters, but I've done everything I can. I've done like oh, this is your new inbox. Like, this is where you put all of the things that you have. This is your charging station. Like, and it's like, no. And there's like something plugged into my bathroom, and like, there's just something always charging, always done. I recently have gone through our garage and we made our old pump house into a workshop. So I'm hopeful that maybe I can start migrating some of that big stuff over there. But I'm always going to have random screws, things I pull out of pockets, grease covered clothes. Like, it's just part of it.
It kills me when I hear people talk about, like the mental load of separating lights from darks. And I'm like, but you're not even talking about like cow shit versus greasy versus lights versus darks versus like.
And then do you run something between those cycles so that the next cycle it doesn't get tainted by the previous one?
100%. It looks like, so my husband, we live in the middle, like our farmhouse is in the middle of all of our acreage. So there's not really, you don't have neighbors or anything. So he's been accustomed to, since I've moved in, leaving his like waders and his pants and his boots outside. And then I pick them up at a later time, like rinsing them off before I bring them in. And so it looks like someone got beamed up by an alien, because there's just like pants sitting there with boots and clothes. And he's walked into the house with just his underwear on. So yeah, I agree. The laundry is a big thing, and I've Googled many of times of how to get certain stains out, how to get things to not smell a certain way. I've determined that clothes are just going to be work clothes, and there's going to be some that aren't work clothes, and we just store them differently.
In our house, sometimes the porch clothes is because they're filled with straw, and I don't want the trail coming through the house, right? So it's like, undress out there, whether it's kids or whoever, and shake it out before it comes through into the laundry room, because I don't want that path all the way through the house.
You mean that moment when they unfold their cuffs and like 2 cups of hay chaff falls out of the legs of their pants? I mean, I've heard, because this has never happened in my house. Yeah, Christina, I've said that when I hit the lottery, I'm going to put a separate laundry room on the back of the house, but like a full decontamination hose down shower.
Right, drain on the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, barn laundry situation.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that idea. I think that's a winner.
I want a nice washer and dryer because we have 2 kids. I do a lot of laundry, but then it's like, how do you ask the appliance store, like, how much lamb placenta can this handle? How bad is the damage going to be if a socket wrench goes through this washing machine? Not that either of these things have ever happened, but theoretically.
No, of course not. Of course not. No, I think the old school stuff lasts the longest, in my opinion. Like, we have a fridge that's been here since this house has been here. It has a wooden handle, and that thing's going to be here it's going to be here past my grandkids, I think, because they just don't make stuff like that anymore. So my advice, if you're going to invest in your decontamination, would be to go find someone who still has an old school dryer and washer. And then find a repairman who still repairs those types of washers and dryers.
Yeah, nothing with a computer chip in it.
I love to, that refrigerator weighs more than your entire family combined. Like, it does.
We have two. I brought mine from my old house, which is like the fancy digital kind that has like the temperature and stuff on top. And then my husband has his old school one because the other one didn't fit because we have like those built-ins and stuff. And it's just funny. Like people always walk into my kitchen and see that and they're like, wow, that's an old fridge. I'm like, still works and is very much going to stay here until it doesn't work. That's how it goes.
Because otherwise you're going to have to find somebody to move it.
Yeah, or find a fridge that's that small. Because again, like it's got to be a specific size.
Christina, when you said your in-laws are close, I know you meant emotionally, but can you see their house from where you are?
No, I can't. So they're about 5 miles down the road, which is nice. So our land's kind of broken up where we have land surrounding our home, and then my mother-in-law's 5 miles down the road, and there's some land surrounding her home. And then we have a family barn that we do like events and things like that over at her house. But it's enough where, she's over a lot. We had to, again, old house, old habits die hard. My grandma's house used to be you just walk in. Like you just walk into the house and there's never a locked door. There's never any sort of like hint of privacy. So when I first moved in, my mother-in-law, because she lives down the road, would just walk into my house. No knock, no anything. And I am a boundaries person. I'm big on that. I'm like a very much like, this is my space. And so we had a lot of conversations like that. Because even though she's like not right there, she kind of is. My mother-in-law's 75. She's been in this thing for a while. She also fell in love with a person who does this for a living, my husband's dad, who's no longer with us. And they also got married very quickly, about 3 months, I think, between the time they met to the time they got married. She was also an out of water fish. She came from the Riverside area to here. So we have very similar like crossover. But yeah, she's around a lot. And I love her. My kids, they love her. But it's been a lot to get used to because there's a lot of involvement. Again, like I mentioned, there's a lot of both business and also on a personal level when you grow up the way you grew up here.
Definitely. Do you have any specific advice for someone who's maybe struggling with adjusting to that farm life transition or adjusting to moving into a new community, like things that you felt like really worked well for you, or even things that kind of backfired and you had to backtrack on?
Yeah. When I first moved here, I was being engaged. So there was a lot of parties and stuff. Like people were being introduced to me. And I was, again, being introduced as Alex's new like fiance and blah, blah, blah. I found that I needed to make my own path with friendships. I needed to find my own friends, my own people that I related to. And it just so happens that sometimes their husbands knew my husband, but not always. And so that would be my advice is to, while it's nice for you to be introduced to people and like meet your husband's friends and meet people that have always been around, there are a lot of people that are going to be your people that maybe aren't already part of that group. And so I found a lot of my people through going to like mommy and me things with my young daughter. My older daughter's 10. So I have a 2-year-old and a 10-year-old. And my 10-year-old's on the autism spectrum. So I'm very involved at the school, doing a lot of work with their extra needs and things like that. So I would do like PTA and I meet like PTA moms, or I would go to an event for the school and I'd find new people. And, I would test it out. I would say, is this going to be my person? I kind of like dating, let me go to coffee with this person, see how they're doing, see if I like their vibe. And then if this works well, we take it to the next step. And if it doesn't, we just smile and we know each other now in town. So that's been my advice is to kind of just find your own people. Don't just rely on the people that are being thrust upon you. And then also with the whole coming in to a dynamic that's already placed, I think it takes a person that has like a strong sense of their own identity and wanting to be a part of something, but also bring your own flavor to it. And it can be so easy to get sucked into becoming what you believe everybody wants you to become and kind of being that person for them. I think it's hard if you're someone who has a good sense of self to create your own space in an already established environment. And so I've done that by just kind of making sure that I don't lose myself to certain things, keeping myself involved in things I'm passionate about, projects I have. My podcast has been a big part of that, like having my own thing on top of being a stay-at-home mom who's married to a farmer. Because otherwise, I find that a lot of farm wives slip into this, I'm a farm wife, and that's kind of their only identity. And while that's wonderful, and you can find a lot of community in other wives that are, in that same space because you know each other's language, it's not the only thing. I think that we should all have our own stuff And that's just in general. Like, even if you weren't a part of the farm life, like if you're a mother in general, you should have your own space outside of motherhood. If you're married, you should have your space outside of that marriage.
I'm wondering, Christina, because you seem like a really outgoing person, and I'm wondering, as someone who is on the spectrum myself and is not super socially competent, I would say. Like, I'm fairly outgoing, but I'm not real good at it. The balance for me of respecting the dynamics of existing relationships versus letting myself get sucked into those dynamics, and only being friends with my husband's friends' wives and like that sort of thing. What suggestions you might have for two? It feels really awkward. I guess there's like friend dating apps in cities, but not in like east small town nowhere, because there'd be two users and it would be super awkward when you like swipe left and some other mom's like,
When you realize that you're not going to be friends.
yeah, I know you swiped left on me. But also just like knowing that you can't be friends with everybody and you don't need to be friends with everybody, but balancing that with not being such a dick that it like ruins the rest of your life. Because it's like, yeah, it's like small town dating, like if you break up, you're still going to see them at every PTA meeting and everything forever.
You cannot burn bridges here. You cannot do it. Like, you have to politely like do a bless your heart and then bounce out, because you cannot burn bridges, because it sticks with you forever. And then your kids have to deal with that too, because nobody forgets anything around here. My husband had a fallout with a good friend, and we still, when we see them, it's so awkward. Anyone related to them, it's like this whole thing that exists because there's this breakage. I think for me, I've always been able to, and I think this is like a personality thing, just kind of distinguish different friends are for different things. I have certain friends that they're my true blues. Like, they're the people that I go to with hard stuff, things when I need to have emotions and like big feelings, things I might not trust with other people. And that is maybe two people in my whole life. Like, I don't have a whole giant friend group of that. But then I have a lot of other friends where I'm like, these are my like entertainment friends. These are people that I would want to hang out with, invite to a party, go to coffee with. Maybe if I want to get my nails done, invite them to go with me. And that's maybe a handful of people. The kind of friends that you would always invite to like your kid's birthday party. Those are those like kind of out acquaintances that are friendly. And then there's like the people that you're just nice to, but they're not your people. Like, they're not your people. So I'm kind to everyone, but there's like certain layers of coming into the inner circle of my existence. And there are certain people that get the full me versus other people who get like the Alex's wife version of me, which is just like friendly and pretty neutral. You'll know if you've entered an inner layer if I cuss around you. If I drop an F-bomb, you're in.
You've entered a new sphere.
Yeah, you've entered a new sphere. And I don't know. I've always been like that though with friendships. Like, in college, there was like the people that you'd study with, and then the people that you'd work with. And then if that person was your vibe, you might entertain inviting them outside of that circle to test them out. And so that would be my advice when you're in that situation, is that you don't have to be friends with everyone, but you have to be friendly to everyone.
That is a great distinction, you know. Of,
Yeah, and socially, I also struggle with certain things. I'm a little bit more, like you said, outgoing. So I have a tendency to, when I find that that person's my person, inundate them with a lot of love and like opinions and like all this stuff. I forget, like, my boundaries go down. And so I have to also like watch myself. And then when I'm also being friendly, sometimes I can come across aloof and people think I don't like them. And so I have to be a little bit more overtly smiley because I forget my face sometimes when I'm in public.
I feel like, in high school and dating, it's like, oh, we got to second base or whatever, and I feel like we need to like normalize some level of that for friendship, of like, oh, we're having coffee friends, or we're like afternoon shopping friends, or we're like, I will call you for bail money friends. Like, where are the boundaries of like, what is the next step in like, we're taking our relationship to the next level. and now you've seen my boobs. I feel like as someone who's, I had infertility and I had just health shit, having that friend that can go to doctor's appointments with you is so critical because it makes it, when you're driving 2 hours to go to the doctor, it is so nice to have that person where it's like, this is a fun girls' day interrupted by this stupid errand we have to run, as opposed to like, I'm going to go by myself or with someone I don't like very much, and this whole day is now 20 times as painful as it would have been if I had just gone by myself. Like, and having that person where you can be like, of course you can sit in on my doctor's appointment and watch my mammogram, like, like it's nice to have that person.
Yeah, like let's like, oh yeah, let's just hang out while I flapjack my boob. Like oh my gosh. Yes. Well, and I think my very best friend in the whole world, she lives in Texas. And so we communicate on an app called WhatsApp, and we leave each other obscenely long voice messages, like 30, 40 minutes. And we just connect in that way. And so when I have hard stuff that like maybe I feel like my local friends aren't really a place for that, I do when I go on drives like that. Like, oh, I'm on the way to the doctor. I'm really nervous. I'm going to WhatsApp my friend the whole way there. Or I'm dropping off my kid and it's been a hell of a morning. Send all the coffee. I'm going to be on that 25-minute drive back from school talking to my friend on the phone. And it's nice to have those spaces too. It doesn't have to be a local person. You could have that be someone you connected with online or have found through like a farm wives group or have connected in some way outside of like your inner circle here locally.
Everyone has an origin story, but some stories hit you in the heart, and the story behind one of our past guests is totally one of those. It all started with a young kid named Kawani.
Yeah, Sean, the chicken guy short of Blooming Health Farms, didn't know he'd be a chicken farmer or that he'd be teaching you how to turn your flock into a business. It began with Kawani, a kid stuck in the court system who needed a second chance. He joined Sean at Blooming Health Farms to turn his life around.
One day, Sean showed Kawani how to sell fresh eggs at a local market. As Kawani started selling those eggs, Sean saw the real power in what he was doing. It wasn't just about the eggs. He was building skills and getting respect from the community. That one small act of selling eggs transformed his life.
And that's how Blooming Health Farms was born. Sean saw that selling eggs could be more than food. It could be a way to help others learn business skills and build their own futures. And now, through their online community called Pimp Your Flock, Blooming Health Farms is taking this mission even further.
Pimp Your Flock is a community for people who want to turn their passion for chickens into profits. You'll learn how to turn your flock into a real income source, and when you join, you're supporting Blooming Health Farms so they can help more kids like Kawani build a better future.
So if you're looking for a way to turn your flock into a business and be part of something bigger, join Pimp Your Flock at pimpyourflock.com. Not only will you learn the skills to make your egg business grow, but you'll also be part of a community that's changing lives.
Head over to pimpyourflock.com today and let's make an impact together, one egg at a time. So I'm adding one more thing, Arlene, and then you can talk again. Something that is really strained a lot of friendships in our area, and I'm guessing in your area as well, is the current state of politics. How are you, without getting too far into your politics, if you don't share that, which is fine, how are you feeling about the current state of what farm labor is probably going to look like pretty quick?
Well, that's a whole thing, right? So sorry, let me decline this. I thought I had my stuff on silent. She must have broken through. Let me back up so that you can edit that out. So that's a whole thing. I think that I would say I identify left-leaning, and my husband would identify right-leaning. And so we have kind of a different take on things. That being said, I live in rural Northern California, and everyone around me is very right, like very, very right. It's kind of rare to have like a left-leaning person. I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot about the effects of politics on agriculture, on the way that we receive our water, the way that we receive our taxes. I never really considered a lot of that because of the way I grew up. I grew up in a city where everyone needed assistance and we all utilized government assistance and help in that way. And so it informed who I became. And the same goes for here. The people who are here haven't experienced a lot of the things I've experienced, and so their view of life is different. And so I think what I'm noticing is that I have a personality that can go, okay, I may not agree with that, but I get it. I get why you would think that. And I may not respect that, but as long as you're not doing anything hurtful, I can just be friendly with you. And that is lost, I think. And so that, as far as politics goes, that's kind of where I'm at. I think that I'm a rare left-leaning person in that viewpoint. I think there's a lot of like people, there's a lot of divide where it's like, if you don't agree with me, we cannot talk anymore. That being said, I don't hang out and I'm not associated with people that are morally like not there with my morals. So that's another piece of it where it's like there's the politics of it and then there's the morals of it. We can agree to disagree about the use of taxes all day long. Like I can talk to you and you can be like, this is where I want my money to go and this is what needs to happen with the quality of the agriculture and all. Get it. Totally understand, following you. But when we get into things that impact real people, that's where I kind of have a lot of divide with folks. So I hope that answers your question. I'm learning a lot about the way politics affects the farm, but I'm also very aware of like the environment I'm in is different and I'm adjusting to that too.
I think that's a really good division because I think it's important but hard to remember that we can disagree about immigration policy or policies about support or health access or whatever. But for me, the hard line is if you're saying that those people aren't as people-y as we are, and so they don't deserve rights and they don't deserve to be considered as strongly as we are, that's a no-go line. And I have a lot of friends that I disagree with on things, but if we can't agree that all humans are humans, then that's a fundamental problem, and that's not politics.
Exactly. There's the politics and then there's the a lack of empathy from someone. I can understand that maybe if there's a left-leaning policy and it affects people negatively, that there are some people that are going to be affected by that. And I have empathy for those people. And I think that's what's lost is there is a lack of empathy in the current environment for other people. And because of so much has happened, there's a lot of me and mine type of ideology versus like me and mine, but also I care about you too. People are so quick to protect their own space and their own family at the, I think, detriment of others. I joke with my husband. I'm like, it feels like, the time where zombies come and you're like, get off my land. I go, we're not there yet. We don't need to be like that towards each other. We're not in a zombie apocalypse. We can still care about other people. It will not hurt us to care. So yeah, that's a fun side conversation I wasn't expecting, but hey, it's 9 a.m. What's going on?
Yeah, that's right. Going all in on all the important things. So when we're talking about conversations, you mentioned that you're a podcaster, and I've listened to several episodes of your show. So I wanted to talk about kind of what the inspiration was, who you and your co-host talk to, and what kind of conversations you're having.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing it up. I love it so much. So I mentioned at the top of the show, we've been doing it for about a year. I started it as alongside my co-host. I co-host the show with my friend Claire Strong. We're called the Momversation Club, and it's a weekly show we do every Wednesday. And I'm in Northern California, and I have young children. And my co-host Claire is in Southern California, and she has two teenager daughters. Whereas I have two little girls. And so we have a lot of crossover, but we also differ in a lot of ways in our current season of parenthood. So it's been a lot of really fun conversations where we both talk about things that affect us, but also learn a lot from each other. We also bring on guests for specialized topics, like we've recently brought on someone to talk about postpartum depression. We've talked about grief. We've talked about all sorts of stuff, birth injuries, birth trauma, anything that has to do with mom. And the big thing is we want to talk about things that nobody's talking about. We noticed, like we talked about today in the show, actually, we felt isolated. When I was coming into looking into to doing this show, I was a transplant from the city into this farmhouse, and I was like, I don't know anyone. I don't have any mom friends yet. I feel very isolated. And my co-host is from England. And so she came here for love, and she brought her two teen daughters with her several years ago. And so she also feels a little bit like an outsider. So it was two outsider moms who were like, we don't have those friends yet that can bail us out of jail, like Caite was saying. We don't have those. And so who do we talk about with things that are really difficult? Like, I was dealing with postpartum depression. I was like, I don't have an outlet for this. I don't have anyone that I feel safe with to talk about with that. She was dealing with a lot of like marital issues and things like that, and feeling like an outsider in an area that felt very affluent where she's not that way as well. And so we kind of joined together and went like, well, I bet you other moms feel like that. I bet you other moms don't have that close friend who they can talk about with the hard stuff. So our aim is to really be that close friend, to be that space where you can bring in the topics that are taboo or things that we don't really recognize. And being more than moms. We're not just talking about things that are like, oh, there's plenty of podcasts that do it, but we aren't like, here's 5 tips to make your lunch more healthy for your kid. That's not our vibe. It's more so like, let's talk about how difficult it is to navigate your life when you feel like you're a stay-at-home mom who gets overlooked for a lot of things. And you feel like you have a lot of responsibility and no one's noticing the things that you are doing right. There's a lot of that kind of stuff where it's like the internal monologue of what a mom might be feeling at any given moment.
Yeah, and I think we have kind of a similar starting point for our podcast, right? That sense of isolation that comes along with being a parent, even if you're, I had been living in my community for a few years, but was commuting to a job, an hour away. So I was in the car 2 hours a day. I was working away from this community, and so then I had a baby, and all of a sudden I was home, and I was like, I don't know anybody here. Same thing, right? Like I don't have any mom friends. I've been living here for a couple of years, but like other than my mother-in-law and like a few of the neighbors, I didn't know anybody, and they were all empty nesters who didn't have a baby in the house kind of thing. So yeah, it's amazing how those conversations, we need to be having them, and finding the people to have those conversations with, even if they're not in your house but can be in your ear with a podcast, makes a big difference.
Yeah, I'm trying to be better about sharing it with people in my world, because it will inevitably happen every week. I go to a mommy and me, like I have a whole schedule with my toddler. Story time this day, play group this day, and every once in a while it'll be like, oh, I didn't know you had a podcast. I'm like, dang it, I need to wear a shirt or something, like because I get so involved in conversations that I forget to bring in like what I'm doing. But it could help everyone, so I'm trying to get it out there. We do a great show. It's got great content, but we're still kind of battling the algorithm with social to kind of get amplified a bit, which I know that, everybody who has a show like this struggles with. So I'm just hoping we find the audience like you guys have. And it's niche. Like the people that you are speaking to are very specific in a certain type of life. And I think that this kind of show is needed. We need to have a place where we can put these very specific things that nobody gets. Like nobody gets like we do.
I was listening to one of your episodes the other day, and I don't want to spoil it for people so they can go and listen to it themselves. But we were talking about your specific experiences with multi-level marketing, MLMs. Kind of a lot of people know that kind of expression. And Katie and I had this is something that we had discussed, like not on the podcast, but it feels like in rural places in particular, people are looking for flexible work at home options. If you're home with your kids, your farmer is away all the time, or you're farming yourself, but you're trying to earn a bit of income on the side. And I feel like MLMs can be really tempting. And like I said, I don't want to spoil the episode, but I was just wondering if you were willing to talk a little bit about the ways in which they can be problematic in some in some circumstances, and they often end up being, some people can be really successful at them, but there are a lot of people who aren't.
Yeah, no, it's you're completely correct. There is a lot of people who kind of come into that space for those very reasons, and I see it all the time. Like I'm part of a lot of Facebook groups for women who are living on the farm or farm wives, and inevitably someone will be asking about how someone makes part-time income, and there will be 3 or 4 comments that are like, join the team, and I'm like, oh no, don't do that, don't do it. It's so obvious too. It's like, oh man. But yeah, I did do an episode. So if you're listening, if you're interested in that topic, definitely go over to our show and listen. But I talked about my own experience with an MLM. I was specifically with a health type MLM that focused on weight loss. And so a lot of my conversation in that podcast was about just the effects of talking about your body as a product and how that can be so hard on your self-esteem, your body image, the damage it does, the behind the scenes of what life is like behind the MLM like outside look. But when it comes to the preying upon women in rural spaces, it's really icky. And what's interesting about MLMs is that they all follow the same formula with just a little bit of a different flavor. You can see the same, I guess, tactic from someone who's selling eyelashes to someone who's selling leggings to someone who's trying to get you to buy the latest drink this shake and lose 50 pounds in 1 month. They all do the same thing. And it's like projecting this life where everything's so happy, everything's so much better. Life is just, you have so much community, you have so much energy and life to you. And on the show, I talk about what that's like on the inside of like what you're projecting versus what's happening. But it's very appetizing if you're a woman who's looking for a side income, maybe just feeling isolated, maybe feels like a lack of identity, like I talked about earlier, where nothing is really their own. It could be nice to jump into something like that because then you're like, well, I'm doing this business. I am creating a name for myself. And then when you jump in, there's a lot of people who are in that space who make you feel important, and they make you feel like you are doing something to like change the world one eyelash at a time, you know? And so it's really appetizing. I would say that most MLMs are preying on women. They are looking for that archetype. They're looking for a woman specifically, not a lot of men, a lot of women who have a community already established, who have influence in that community. They're looking for people that need something, whether it's purpose or community or money. And then they find that, I guess, hard point, like that soft spot, and they lean into it hard and they try to get you on there. And a lot of these people jump in with the vision of being exactly like Susie Q, who pitched it in the farm group, and they end up losing a lot of money and not maybe doing it exactly the way that they wanted to. Or maybe they do a really good job, but they lose a lot of their own time and energy at the expense of that. So I always tell gals when I see that in the chat, I'm like, don't do that. Maybe like sell your crocheted blankets on the side. Like maybe do you teach a foreign language? Like, do you have any soft skills that we can pitch? Because I just anything but that. It's not, one of the big things is like you're owning your own business, and that the reality is that you don't. You're selling something, you're doing something, and depending on what it is, it goes from like kind of harmless and you're just kind of doing this like losing money thing, kind of like I guess Bitcoin or something, like you do what you want to do with your money, to you could be really hurting someone with some of these products. And for me, when I got into the health and wellness space, I couldn't rectify the hurt that was causing myself and others in the process. And I'm still learning so much of the damage that's been done from me being in that MLM to the people that I love. And I'm still experiencing a lot of emotional stuff from that experience.
And I just want to say from listening to that podcast that, you were really vulnerable in that episode. And I'm sure that wasn't easy. So I really appreciate you putting it out there and being honest about it, because I'm sure that wasn't easy. And, there's probably still people, in your life in some sense who maybe were part of that or are still part of that, program. And that's not an easy step to take. So yeah, thank you for doing that.
Yeah. And like legally I had to wait too. Because there's so much when you're signing up for an MLM, like look at the fine print, because there's a lot of stuff that they have available to them for repercussions, like if you were to tell the truth about what's going on. So I also had to legally wait a certain amount of time before I could even talk about it. And I still don't talk about specifically what company or any of that stuff for that same reason of like not wanting that I don't want the smoke, but I also want to like advocate for people not doing that.
It's interesting too because I feel like there's so much negativity towards the women who participate in MLMs that people act like they are being so predatory, and some of them are. I mean, like, let's just face it. But the MLM structure makes money off getting people to sign up and selling them this dream. And I think especially for rural women, where there aren't a lot of part-time jobs, they want something that works around the kids' school schedule. Maybe they have to milk cows, maybe they have to help with field work, like, and God knows, I mean, apparently Canadian farmers are super wealthy, maybe, I don't know. But like, none of us are making enough money. There's always that pressure to be able to help in some way. And I think it's a lot like a cult or like any sort of mental, physical, sexual abuse, whatever, that there's so much shame in saying, I got involved in this thing and I can't get out of it. And especially when somebody is putting all this money and all this effort into showing you how everyone else is succeeding at this thing. And if you admit that you're not succeeding, it's because you're a loser with no friends. And not possibly because nobody can fucking win because it's a pyramid scheme. Just saying.
That's the thing, is they put it on you. No, it truly. And the thing about it is, in order to truly make money, you have to abandon your own logic of what you may do as a normal person and go with whatever script they're following. And so, yeah, I feel for people that are still in it, because I feel like at a certain point you get so deep that you can't really leave. A lot of the people that I associated with, because I got pretty far up there, guys. Like I was going to Maui on retreats, and I was doing like big stuff, making like $8,000 a month. Like it was very appetizing. But certain people got themselves so entrapped that they left big careers. They have retired their husbands. They're in it. They're like the people that are playing the violin as the Titanic goes down, because they can't go anywhere else. And they've also kind of lost a lot of credibility with their former situation. Like I know a lot of people in my MLM were nurses and people that were in the medical field. And then if you go back to the medical field, not only have you lost maybe your license, because you have to renew that as you go, you're coming in from like a 3, 5, 10-year break, and you're explaining that gap with I was selling shakes. It's hard. It's a hard situation. I was lucky to have just gotten out right at the good time. I do that a lot. I somehow can go, this is not looking good, I'm going to skedaddle. And I have that talent. I think it's a lot of like trauma response. I can feel when the ground's shaking because of my background and I've talked about this on the podcast, but I have a lot of like trauma in my background. And so I can feel it and I go, ooh, I got to get out of here. Peace out. And so right after I left, this particular company started seeing their stock plummet. They started seeing an exodus of coaches. They started seeing an exodus of clients leaving. And I went, woo, glad I got out of there. But there's a lot of people that are still like in it because they have no other place to go. And they've lost credibility in the place that they were. And so I feel for them because they're not, if you don't jump in going, I want to hurt people, I want to make money, like people, I have to imagine people aren't like that. It comes from a place of integrity.
Yeah, they would have become finance bros if they were those people, or yeah, they would have gotten into Bitcoin like a normal person.
Totally. Ponzi schemes.
Yeah, right. Part of what makes me so mad, and this is very shallow, is when the product actually is good, but the whole selling it process is such bullshit that like you can't even admit that you like the product because now people think that you're like supporting this. I'm looking at you, LuLaRoe. Some of those pants were real ugly, but those dresses are super comfy. Like I have a couple of their dresses from, like Goodwill, and they're so comfy. And I'm just like, and I can't buy more of them because I don't know if they're even still in business, but also.
No, they're not. They went down like a fiery fire. Like they're gone.
Yeah, which they should have. Like, don't get me wrong. These women who are like clearancing out thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stock that nobody wants because some of that shit is real ugly. But at the same time, it's like, but it's super comfy and like.
Totally. My MLM that I was in, the weight loss portion was absolutely real. I lost like 75 pounds in 10 months. I felt really great because everybody was treating me different. I sold the heck out of it because people were like, wow, you look like a whole different person. Um, People in my life still buy it. Not from me because I'm no longer associated, but from other people. And it's because they feel like it's a good product and they're around me and I'm like, did you not listen? Like, did you not hear my pod? I'm going to send it to you.
Maybe you do need that shirt. Be like, I have an episode about this. That's what we need our shirts to say.
Yeah, episode 5. That's this shirt.
Yeah, no, it was I feel like it was a whole chapter of my life that was really crazy. I'm like, what? Plot twist. And it was so funny how it happened because I went from being in marketing and advertising and then I got into this MLM, got divorced, remarried, moved to a farm. Like it's just I picked up a different book. It was the whole thing.
Walking hand in hand through the walnut trees. Oh.
You need a Hallmark movie about this. I would watch the shit out of that Hallmark movie.
Oh, no, it was like a Hallmark movie too when I first came here. Like farm life is so from the outside, like for people that have been in it for a really long time, I think it's like their usual business as usual thing. But when I came out here, when I was first dating my husband, it was like I was in some sort of Nicholas Sparks movie. I felt so like we're gonna live on the land. Like we're just like, very like excited. And there was a lot of like driving through the back roads with country music. And I'm like, I could get used to this. And I envisioned myself as this like woman who would transform into someone who baked barefoot with apron and like was a homestead wife. That did not happen. Unfortunately, there was no like button to push for that upgrade. I'm just me. Yeah. No. It's just me on a farm now.
Right, the prairie dresses didn't just didn't appear. Yeah. Yeah. So, when we're talking about different chapters of your story, we often ask our guests about the time they first became parents. And I guess for you, you have had your 2 children with 2 different partners. And I'm kind of wondering about both the time when you first became a parent and then the second time and how those experiences were different for you and what those periods of your life have been like.
Yeah, well, when I had my first child, that was back in 2015 because she's 10 now. I can't believe she's 10. These kids, man, they grow way too fast. But I was a working mom in a 2 people work type situation. So at the time when I got pregnant, I was working for a newspaper. I was in advertising. And then after I got pregnant, when I was first freshly postpartum, I was offered a work from home position for a parenting magazine. So I was so lucky that I got to work from home and be with my little one, and also make money. And my mom was there and available to help me with some babysitting here and there so I can go see clients. But I was in a situation where, my spouse at the time would go to work for a really long period of time. I wouldn't see them and then come home and we'd have the eating together and then we'd wake up and do the same thing over again. And that experience doing postpartum that way felt really isolating. I felt like it was just me and this baby. And this person, he was wonderful in helping in the very beginning. He took some parental leave. Thankfully, he had it. But as we got further and further into the parenting process, that kind of grinded on me. I go to work 9 to 5, drop her off at daycare, pick her up, get dinner ready, have 3 hours with her, and then do it all again in the morning. And the spouse would do the same thing, but on my side of the woods would be the cooking and the cleaning and all of the stuff on top of my day. So it was really, I got resentful. I felt like a lot of resentment built. And then there was other issues in that marriage that were, things I won't get into. But when she got older, she was diagnosed with autism and things got even harder. There was a lot more things to deal with and a lot more pressure. And I felt very alone. And then, cutting into now, I have a 2-year-old and I was basically a stay-at-home mom. I had my MLM up until the time My daughter was like 5 or 6 months, and then I stopped. And so I had that going. But then after I left that, I was like, well, I guess I'll just be a stay-at-home mom. And it was still isolating in a different way because I didn't know anybody around here. I was still learning people and getting my community on. But my husband was home. Farmers have a very unique situation where during their harvest and planting times, they're based like you're married to the farm. So like you're basically a widow wife like during that time. But otherwise they're here. At least in my experience, my husband is here. And so it was nice to have two people doing this together and being able to lean on each other. And my husband is truly like my best friend. I love him so much. And it's different when you marry someone with eyes wide open, walking into a life you see, and you're an adult, and like versus getting married when you're 23 and you don't know nothing about anything. Like, so I think that I picked a really good partner to go through that experience with. And I did have extra hard stuff with this one. My most recent one, I had postpartum depression and anxiety. So there was other like things to battle, but it was feasible to do so with that help. And so that would be the big difference between the two, is that that 9 to 5 life versus the farm life, and what that looks like when it comes to raising kids. And it's a huge benefit of this life to have a family be so part and intertwined in this business. It's not uncommon for my husband to have my toddler sleeping on the harvester on the ground, like with her little stuffies, and it's, during harvest season, he does work with his cousin, and they have 2 kids, and they're in the back of the combine, and then we're waving back and forth, and he's got his toddlers and the other guy's got his toddlers, and it's all immersed. And that's not how it is out in the outside world. Like farm life is its own little bubble, I think. And I love that about it. I love that piece of the farm life. It's really fun to watch these kids grow up in this structure.
You talked about your transition to a new community, and um, especially with your daughter's autism and transitioning to a new household, a new school, new community, and a new parental figure. How did that transition go for her and for your husband?
So, my daughter is, so her autism, just because everybody's so different, like every child on the spectrum is so different. Just to give perspective to it, at the time when I met my husband, she was 5. No, she was 6. She was 6 turning 7. And we were not getting a whole lot of verbal stuff out of her. She was able to ask me for basic things like water, food, I want this show, but there wasn't a lot of back and forth communication. And she was very routine oriented, very structured, had to be a certain way. We had like a visual calendar. And if we changed anything on the visual calendar, like there'd be hell to pay. It was a whole thing. And her dad, her biological dad, who I'm very good friends with, fun fact, he lives down the road on the farm. He lives in our guest house because he had a situation where he needed a house, and we were like, we got one, so come on in. And we're all friendly, my husband and my ex-husband and myself, and we're all like this big blended family. So basically when he walked into my life, he was coming into a situation where I was like, listen, this is part of the deal. This is the package. And I understand if after you meet my daughter and you see the level of where we're at, if you need to bounce. Like, this is your window. You have a week. Like, you need to decide whether you're in or out, because I'm not going to invest any more of my emotions, like, if you aren't able to handle it.
You were already out of the geographic zone, so there's very little flexibility on this one, right?
Yeah, and I was hopeful, but my ex-husband is kind of a distant fellow. He's never been diagnosed, but I have a feeling that, like, and he's said the same thing. And so he doesn't connect to her the same way as, like, he's not as emotionally driven. He's not super out there with his like love and affection. And my husband, Alex, is. And so when he met my daughter, after first meeting her, I was so thankful. She threw a full meltdown at his feet. And he got to see the very highest severity of what it would be. And he said, I'm game. And he dated me for about a month before we decided to kind of combine. And he took her on as his own. He was like, I know full well that this is the package, and I'm marrying the package. And so he leaned in hard and was just very much like open to all of it. Wanted to know, I had to draw him like a bubble chart, like a spider chart of all the different services she receives and like how long she's received them and all this stuff. He wants to be involved in every meeting. He loves it. He loves her. And as a result, the enmeshment of like her coming here has resulted in her now back and forth talking and her loving this life and loving going on the tractor and doing things. She wants to be a farmer librarian, she told me.
That is the perfect combination of things.
Love that for her. Yes. But I think, there was an adjustment too, because going from the city where there's a lot of services, coming here, I had to fight really hard. It took me about 6 months to 8 months to find something similar here. But once we got all adjusted, it just felt like everything locked in. And she's adjusted really, really well. And then once we had our second child, she's become such a wonderful big sister. And it's been really great to watch them interact, because now that my 2-year-old, my 2-year-old is developmentally like leaping. It's so crazy as a parent to have one that like struggled so hard and like we worked so hard for everything. And the other one's like, I'm like, what are you doing over there? How do you know that? Like, it's crazy.
I didn't teach you that. We didn't have to involve a therapist or anything.
No, she just latches onto stuff. And so between the two of them, they're now at the same level with talking. And so you'll hear little conversations and stuff. So it's been really fun to watch those two. And I think a lot of it is the space to grow, the involvement of my husband, the fact that he is here every day and noticing these things and helping me, is working with the therapist. You just don't get that. I wish everyone could like live this life because it's different when you have someone you love partnering with you and you guys are day to day, like doing life together. Every morning, my husband and I wake up and we have our coffee and I go, okay, what's on the docket? And he'll be like, I'm having to go here. I have to get this at the hardware store, blah, 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 blah. And like, we partner together and he's like, I got pickup, you got drop off. Like, let's do this together.
I think it's so important too to acknowledge that I think there can be a lot of really negative feedback about ending a relationship when you have a kid, and that divorce is always so hard on the kids. And I don't think that's true. I think what it is that losing people they're attached to is hard on kids. And it sounds like your daughter didn't lose anybody, that she added more people to love her. And I feel like the best possible thing that we can ever do for our kids is to give them more people to love them. And if the adults can be adults, and this obviously only applies in fairly healthy situations where people just shouldn't be married. We're not talking about abuse. I'm never going to excuse that. But in places where it's just not working, adding more people to love your child is never a bad thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like that's nail on the head, right? Like it depends on how things are in the marriage as to how that next transition can go. We got divorced in the beginning of the pandemic. Me and my ex-husband, we were forced to be within a very, very small space for a very, very long time. And we both looked at each other and were like, we hate each other. Um, like we do not like each other. And I actually like him as a person. Like we are friends. And so I'm like, okay, before this gets worse, like let's part ways. And we did it together. We didn't do divorce lawyers. We did a joint meeting with someone to help us navigate the paperwork. And we were fair to each other. And a big part of it was that at the time I was financially independent. So I didn't ask for any support. And I said, you just be available to her, like be a good father and you won't owe any money. When it comes to big stuff, like if she breaks her arm, I'm going to need help. But like, other than that, like you're on your own, like you just be, as long as you're involved, I'm not going to ask for that financial help. And it ended up working out for me in that way because of the way things shaked out. But I think that was a big part of it too, where there wasn't this push and pull. It was like, we don't like each other. We'd like to be friends still because we think each other are good people. Let's part ways now. And that has informed everything. And when he left, I even was like, listen, you're going to need money to do this, this, and this for your new house. And so why don't I front you money and then we'll sign this contract and notarize it and you pay me back when your taxes come in. And there was a lot of like just I care about how you end up next, and I want you to still be a part of this life, even if we aren't married. And that's continued on. And honestly, it's so annoying how much my husband and my ex-husband get along. They, you guys, they always get on me. They'll be like, dude, did she do this when you were married to her? Because she does it when she's married to me. And it's very annoying. And they'll they'll gain up on me. I'm like, you guys, you're about to become another ex-husband. Like, don't do it. But no, it's wonderful. And because he lives in so close in proximity now, he'll stop by every once in a while and we'll be like, hey, we're having burgers. Do you want to stay? And he'll have, a hamburger or something, or chill out with us and do family puzzles and things like that.
That's really amazing. And obviously that's not available to all people for lots of different reasons, but yeah, that's great that you guys are able to have that dynamic. Um we You've kind of alluded to it already, but we always ask our guests, what is your favorite thing about raising kids on a farm?
Well, I mentioned the fact that dad's around. That's a big part. My family dynamic when I grew up was a lot of turmoil. There was a lot of change. There was a lot of moving and yelling and screaming. And it was like a Hallmark movie, guys. Like, I need to make the book, I need to do it. Um, but because I've married, I don't know if it's just farm life or my husband, but there's just so much calm here on the farm. It's stressful at times. Like, we're always talking about, like, oh, we didn't get paid enough for the, rice that we grew this year, and the price of rice this, and then the water that. Like, there's some stress, but it's not at the level I think that most people experience. There's a level of calm on the farm. There's a level of a lot of just passion in what he does. He loves working the land, and it shows up in his life. And it's like in his veins. Like, he grew up with a father and his father grew up with a father, and they all worked on the farm, and it's a part of their legacy. And from a young boy, like, he was doing all these things. And so he's got girls. My husband does not have a little boy. And we're done. This is our family. And so he's bringing the girls on. Like, the little one's got a John Deere hat and a cat sweatshirt, and she's on the tractor with him. And my oldest wants to be a farmer librarian, and I don't see why that can't happen. And we're just kind of involved and enmeshed in it, and it's really fun. And I like going to the events. Like, tonight we're going to a rice leadership type dinner, and I get to dress up and meet all the other farm wives and hang out and talk shop. We usually talk about how annoying they are, but like, we love doing that. And so I just think that there's like a sense of just family that I didn't have growing up, and there's a lot of peace in that. I feel a lot of calm, less anxious anxiety than the real world has. But at the same time, I want my kids to grow up with some sense of knowing what others are dealing with. And so there's this sense of intentionally parenting, especially as my youngest gets older, because she's latching onto more of that. Um, Being aware of other people, like we talked about earlier in the show. I want them to grow up with the viewpoint that not everyone experiences this. Not everyone has a mom and dad like this. Not everyone um, can be this level of healthy. There are a lot of other people in different situations in different walks of life. And so that is one thing I'm very intentional about when it comes to farm life, because I think that gets lost in the shuffle. There's a lot of people who've grown up this way, and this is the way they'll raise their kids, and that'll be their kids and their kids and onward. And I just feel really important that, along with amazing work ethic that the farm provides and like the security and the love, there should also be a lot of just awareness of the outside world and what that's like.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really important point. And yeah, discussions around diversity and yeah, the understanding of other people's circumstances. And yeah, it is easy in any community to kind of get stuck into, like, this is the way it is and this is the way the world is, and it's really not. The world is huge and there's so many different perspectives out there.
Yeah, my husband and he doesn't know it, but I'm like training him to accidentally have empathy for everybody. He has empathy. He's a wonderful person. He loves everyone, but he doesn't understand the walks of life for certain people because he's never known it. And it's not his fault. It's just the way he's raised. I've been tricking him because I'm watching Orange is the New Black with him. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that show. And I sucked him in, and now he's learning so much about different people's walk of life because of the way that show's structured. They show backgrounds of why people got in prison and how you can easily end up in situations because of your circumstances. And I think it's leading to really good conversations. And so I want to do stuff like that. I don't know about Orange is the New Black for the 5-year-old as she gets older, but like
Yeah, it's a little mature, but I'm sure there's other variations of
maybe we do Sesame Street and we talk a little bit more.
Yeah, that's right.
They
It's in an urban environment, yeah. So, along with all the good, we often ask people to what their biggest parenting struggles are these days. So, what is some of the hard stuff right now?
I think for a lot of the hard stuff right now is probably what most, it's not farm wife specific. It's like all parents are probably dealing with this, but it's emotional regulation. I find that I have 2 kids now that are very much temperamental. I got a toddler who will throw herself down on the ground like a Disney princess every time I say no to applesauce, because applesauce cannot be breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like she needs to eat real food. And then my older one reacts to other people's emotions. She's very sensitive. And so when I'm trying to, you know, not punish, but like redirect and like help that toddler manage her emotions, the other one gets upset because she feels like I'm being mean to her. And so I'm having to woosah breathe a lot at my house because I don't want to make anyone upset. And at the same time, my farmer is learning his own emotional regulation because he's got a lot of stuff with stress where he handles stress by like kind of going up to the top like a rising teapot with like lots of noise and then comes down and is able to calm down after the fact. And so I've just got a lot of like, I feel like I'm walking on landmines over here, guys. Like I'm just like nobody makes sudden movements because someone's going to go off and that requires a lot of like focus on my part. So that's my current parenting struggle is just trying to give myself enough energy to pour into myself so that I have the patience level to deal with like the BS that is right now.
Yeah, everybody's feeling a lot of things. And sometimes it feels like as the mom and the emotional regulator that you don't get to have your own emotions very often because you're busy dealing with everybody else's.
And I also feel like I have to really focus on my own mental health and my own self care because if I'm feeling bone dry, run down, I'm not patient. Like I don't show up well when I'm not taking care of myself. And so, taking care of myself does not mean eating a sleeve of Oreos while I'm watching the Orange is the New Black episode. Taking care of myself is like drinking water, showering, like, you know, maybe waking up a little bit before everybody and having my cup of coffee in peace instead of trying to heat up the same cold coffee 5 times. Like I just I feel like that needs to happen. And that's hard to prioritize as a mom, like to prioritize yourself so that your kids get a better version of you. It feels like you're being selfish sometimes, but it's really important that you do it. Otherwise, the aftershock is going to affect them.
So, we ask all of our guests if you were going to dominate a category at the county fair, what would it be? And categories can be real or made up.
Yeah, I know you guys gave me that question. And I went, I don't know. I guess maybe I could dominate some sort of like helpline for lost farm wives who found themselves in a farm wife situation and don't know the first thing about it. Like kind of like a sheep herder, like come to me. I will tend to this flock. I think maybe that might be my space. Maybe I have a little questions box I get back to later and help them.
Yes. Yeah, like is there like a 1-800 number or like a 411 but for farm wives?
Yeah, and then I hand out flyers about how to get oil stains out of jeans.
This feels like, you know how at Thanksgiving they have the Butterball Turkey helpline? And you can call in with your turkey cooking questions?
Turkey specific questions, yeah.
Yeah. We need that, new farmer helpline of, which laundry do I put together?
Okay, so I'm going to pitch the Barnyard Language Facebook group. I mean, I know it's not a phone line, but come join us and we can talk to each other about it.
Done and done. I will join.
So I am going to go ahead and we'll move into our cussing and discussing segment. So as a listener, if you want to submit your cussing and or discussing entry for us, you can send them to our SpeakPipe or our email, and both of those links are in the show notes. Katie, what do you have to cuss and discuss this week?
I'm learning that this is a thing that neurodivergent people might struggle with more than other people. But the time blindness of how many things you can complete in X amount of time, and the logistical struggles that brings up of always being late because I always think I have time to do one more thing than I actually have time for. And also, I'm leaving for a weekend away with some friends as soon as we're done recording. And I know that I will be gone for like 60 hours total. But trying to figure out how many yarn projects I can reasonably anticipate working on, not even finishing, but just touching at all in that. It's actually like 48 hours with driving and what have you.
Yeah, and you might sleep, maybe a couple hours. You have to put the yarn down to eat, I think, unless someone's going to feed you while you're, yeah.
So realistically, and I mean, it started in childhood with having to pack, 6 books for a 3-hour car trip. I don't enjoy the negativity of being told how many things is reasonable to bring, but also trying to decide is horrible, and I can't bring all of them. And I'm just really feeling some negativity. Feel my feelings.
Is someone else telling you not to bring them, or is it your internal dialogue telling yourself, like, no, you can't actually do that many?
Well, I think that since we're carpooling, it would probably be polite if I left enough room for other people to bring anything. Although I did say in our organizational chat last night that if I found out that any of them were secretly people who do one project and then finish that project and then start thinking about the next project, that we're not friends anymore. Like,
Caite, I'd like to introduce myself as one of those people. So
but you're not invited, Arlene.
that's true. I'm not invited to this retreat. So,
And if you were here, I would probably just give you an extra project, or I'd leave you here to play tractors with my kid.
yeah, here, unwind this wool for me for my next project that I'm thinking about.
Yes. Christina, what do you have to cuss and discuss today?
Well, I didn't hear any cuss words, so damn it to your your situation over there with your storage.
Okay, so Christina, I told one of the friends who's coming. We've been friends for 38 years this year, which is really something. And I messaged her last night and I said, if you see me try to pack more than these 3 fucking projects, tell me no and take them out of my hands. Which, since she's the one who's on my power of attorney to unplug me if I'm in a vegetative state.
Well, that's the inner circle friend right there, the one we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. If unplugging life support and taking yarn out of my hands is the same level of trust. So that probably says a lot about me. Okay, well, it's been a great therapy session, you guys.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm gonna go way out of left field and like take it out of the farm life, if that's okay.
Do it.
And I'm gonna cuss and discuss the carpool lane for dropping kids off. Oh my God, guys. So my daughter goes to a school 25 minutes away. So I have to go on the highway for 25 minutes, drop her off, get out, go back. And then my youngest is starting preschool, well, preschool soon. And so I'm going to have an hour drive the other way to get her there twice a week. Because that's the life when you're in farm life. See, I did bring it back. That's life when you're in farm life. I can't stand when people don't know the carpool lane rules and like aren't getting out in an orderly fashion. There is this lady, I talked about it on my show. She has a like baby holding rifles decal on the back of her minivan. And on the other side says God bless. So she's got a lot of mixed signals going on.
At least she's committed.
Yeah, intuition. Maybe one of those people you can be friendly with, but not friends with. Maybe. I mean, she might be wonderful. Who knows?
So I don't know though, because I might next time I see this happen, like get out with an umbrella. Anyway, go full Britney Spears on her. No, I saw her, and every time she either cuts the carpool line or she'll park and get out of the car while we're all in line for this, like, getting through, and like get her kids out and talk to them and like put their jackets on and buckle them up and kiss them. And I'm like, we've got things to do, lady. Every time I see her, I give her a stern look. And I better not catch her out in these streets. That's my cousin discuss. I don't know who she belongs to, but I do not like this situation. I am and I have a special needs child. So like, I get that people need extra things, but if that's the case, you go park somewhere and take your like longest time that you'd like. Do not do that in the carpool lane. Like, get in, get out. Do not talk to anybody. Do not pass go.
Yes, those are good rules to follow. She does not get the half farmer wave off the steering wheel anymore.
She only gets the middle finger.
Which is a thing, you guys. I didn't know that. It's a solid hand or like the high five. Like, there's different waves. But yeah, no, she doesn't. She gets a glare and then I walk away and I'm like, I don't have enough coffee for this. I'll catch you at drop off.
Arlene, what do you have to cross and discuss?
So mine is seems like a minor thing. So we got my kitchen table and chairs had done its work. It had given its years to my family, and it had done a great job, but it was done. And I had tried to refinish the table. It had gone poorly. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I did not. So anyway, it ended up looking worse after I put a bunch of work into refinishing the table. So I was like, fine, it's going on Marketplace. I went to an antique store and got a new table and chairs. So great. Everything looks beautiful. But now the chairs are just enough of a different dimension. They're like slightly taller, positioned a little bit differently, that I keep running into them, and especially like whacking my elbows off the top. Like when I go to set the table, when I walk around it, it's just like my body, it was like used to the spatial footprint of the old table. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but my elbows are taking a beating from these like the spindles on the top of these chairs, because I just keep knocking them off of those chairs. So yeah, new stuff is great, but yeah, it's hurting my body.
It's always so hard when someone changes something in your house that you've grown accustomed to. My husband hates it. Like, we'll move something or I'll organize a drawer, and he's like, I went to open that drawer and it wasn't there like it always is. And now I'm going there and opening it and I have to go to another drawer. It's a whole thing. I feel like we all have that.
Yeah, or you're prepared to open a drawer, the one that sticks, because it's so full of stuff, and all of a sudden it actually opens all the way. That's a whole different problem when it flies out into your hands. So we want to thank you so much, Christina, for joining us today. And if people want to find you, your podcast, where should they look you up?
Yeah, so we are the Momversation Club. Momversation like conversation, but mom. And you can find us on all social media at Momversation Club. Instagram is our fave, so we always post there very often. And you can also find our episodes at momversationclub.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It was great meeting you.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you for joining us on Barnyard Language. If you enjoy the show, please support us on Patreon with a donation.
Big thanks go out to our show editor, Krista Paffrath at the Rural Podcast Network.
Please rate and review the podcast wherever you listen, and follow the show so you never miss an episode.
If you want to connect with other farming families, join the private Barnyard Language Facebook group.
We are always in search of future guests for the podcast. If you or someone you know would like to chat with us, get in touch.